Actually, now that I think about it, I could make this into a taco. Greetings and welcome to the Fan Perspective. I'm your host Nathan Lyle, and this is another edition of WNBA Weekly. We had a very short week, only one game being played. Chicago and Connecticut. Breland had another 20-point game. Breland had another double-double. But the most important thing, the only thing you really need to know is I was right. That's all that matters. So without further ado, we're just going to skip ahead to this weekend's action, starting with the games that are going to be played on Friday. First of all, you've got Seattle at Connecticut, two teams that are winless right now, vying for that lottery pick. Neither one of them are looking particularly great right now. So, they're both looking for their first win, but it's still early on in the season. And I have a feeling with both of these teams, they're going to start clicking as things keep rolling along. Sue, she missed all of last season with her injury, so she's still kind of rehabbing, getting back into the game flow. Not to mention the team has changed a little bit. They've got new faces over there, so the chemistry isn't just right yet. And with Connecticut, they've got so many young players still adjusting to the league, and they basically overhauled this entire roster, so they've got to get used to playing for each other in this system. I think both of these teams just need a little spark to get themselves going, and they'll be all right. Then you got Washington at Indiana. Indiana, they've struggled a little bit. They've had some tough matchups, and they've played very well against two playoff-bound teams. And they've done so without the help of their leader, Tamika Catchings. Natasha Howard's done a great job in her absence. And meanwhile, the Mystics, they are winless on the season, but they've only actually played one game, and it was against the defending champions, Maya Moore, already looking like an MVP. And Ivory Latta had a good game. I think they played well, despite the fact that they lost horribly. But I think this matchup is a good measuring stick for both of these teams to really find out where they're actually at. Then you've got Minnesota and Tulsa. Tulsa played well in their opener, even though they lost. It was a fantastic loss. It was only a 4-point game, and you've got to be worried that they gave up such a huge, big lead. But they played well. They got good contributions from a lot of players, and it'll be interesting to see, can they at least keep this momentum going? And now they face a much greater challenge against the defending champs. It's hard to say that they could win this one. I mean, I don't know when they're really going to start winning, but they're playing well. Then you got San Antonio at Phoenix. San Antonio's been playing relatively well. Becky Hammond got injured the day before the season started. Anyway, San Antonio is playing pretty well right now. It was a great win against Tulsa. They played decent in their opener against a really tough Atlanta team that could very easily be in the finals again. I think the only real problem San Antonio has at this point is the simple fact that they've got a really tough schedule. Unfortunately, it doesn't get any easier with Phoenix. Then on Saturday, you've got a few great games on the schedule. First, you've got Seattle and Washington. This will be a battle of the guards, Sue Bird, Ivory Latta. Which one can lead them to victory? Personally, at this stage, it's hard to judge how good these teams are. I don't know where they'll be by the time this game starts. They could both still be winless, or they could both be looking for their second straight win. Who knows what will happen on Friday. All I know is that as of right now, just based on what I've seen so far this season, the Mystics look slightly scarier. Then you've got New York and Minnesota. New York, so far they're not looking as scary as they did on paper when the Tina Charles trade was made. However, it's still pretty young in the season. The WNBA, it's got a very long off season and a relatively short training camp. So they don't really have a lot of time to get together and practice, and so it might take a little longer for them to gel together. But when it really starts fitting, this is easily a playoff team. Minnesota, unfortunately, it's not really a good practice team. It's a really tough matchup, with 3 players in their starting lineup who at any time could put up an MVP's type performance. And last but definitely not least, you got Atlanta and Chicago. facing off for the first time this season the last two undefeated teams in the Eastern Conference, and this game is going to be broadcast on NBA TV at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, which means 7 p.m. Central Time, and I believe that's 5 p.m. Pacific Time if you live in California, I believe. Let me double check that, don't take me on my word for it. Check your local listings just to be sure. I went out of my way to mention that because this is a game you should watch. It is a potential Eastern Conference Finals preview. Breland averaging over 20 points a game. Breland averaging a double-double so far. Shoni Schimmel coming off the bench to average 10 assists a game. McCarthy averaging 20 points a game. Little had that big rebounding night. There are plenty of great storylines here that could be watched, and I think it'll just be a fun and exciting game, and if you get the chance, just look at it and enjoy it. It will be fun. If the Sky were healthy, this would be a much tougher choice to make, but no Sylvia Fowles yet, no Epiphany Prince yet, no clue when they'll return, if they return at all this year. I just feel like the Sky, as great as they're playing right now, they might be just a little outmatched. Atlanta looks like a really scary team at the moment. Then on Sunday, you've got two games being played. The first one is the Stars and the Sparks. These teams both have identical records. They're 1-1 with their only loss coming to the Phoenix Mercury. It's a good way for them to really measure themselves. Then you've got Indiana and Atlanta. And that one last week was such a great matchup. How could you possibly pass up on this? Well, that's all I got for you today. Tune in on Monday for an all-new episode of WNBA Weekly. But until then, this has been The Fan Perspective. I'm your host, Nathan Lau. Have a great weekend. I'm distracted right now because I'm trying to look in the camera and talk to you. But the Spurs are playing Game 2 right now against the Thunder. And as I'm talking right now, they got a 2-point lead on us. It's hard to stay focused on this camera. I probably should have filmed it somewhere where I couldn't see the TV.